Pablo Escobar had countless hitmen around him. They were ready to serve Pablo whenever and wherever he needed them. But out of the bunch, he had a few he knew could lay down their life for him. These guys were bound to Pablo by blood. And one of those hitmen was La Quica, the guy many say could actually take a bullet for Pablo without thinking twice. So who is La Quica? What was his relationship like with Pablo? And what happened to him after Pablo died? Let's find out. There was a guy named Max Mermelstein. Max was a freaking snitch, a rat, who was about to rat out Pablo Escobar as his supplier for the cocaine he distributed in the US. Pablo knew Max couldn't be trusted, so he sent La Quica and 2 other men to kill Max, who was in witness protection all the way in the US. La Quica and these 2 guys entered the US with fake passports and decided to go through Miami. So it just seemed like they were 3 guys looking to have fun in the summer with some pretty American ladies. But the US authorities were one step ahead of La Quica and his crew, because immediately, as they landed in the United States, he was arrested. And the rest? Well, we'll talk about the rest later. First, let's go back to where it all started, between La Quica and Pablo Escobar. Just like many of Pablo's hitmen, La Quica wanted a short route out of abject poverty. He was born on August 27, 1966, to a family of 9 children. La Quica's family was not your average Colombian family. These guys were cats and dogs in their home, always fighting for the little food available or the limited financial needs their parents took care of. La Quica's father was surprisingly a cop, while his mother was an evangelist. None of them had any criminal background, but most of his older siblings were members of the Medellin cartel. But as ruthless and nonchalant as his father was, La Quica actually wanted to be a part of the Colombian army. And look, no one can actually confirm this story, but La Quica, during an interview, mentioned the fact that he wanted to join the army in the year 1986. But one thing led to another, and he left military school for the streets, just like his siblings. He was broke, with no love, no care, nothing. All he had was a troubled household and his brother, Bronce, who was always there to help him when he needed it. Now, Bronce was also a member of the Medellin cartel, and he was doing just fine for himself. He wasn't really a top member of the cartel, but he had a lot of cash to spare for some booze and women. La Quica loved Bronce's lifestyle, so he decided to join the Medellin cartel at the age of 12. He ran small errands like stealing motorbikes and burning down stores until he graduated to committing murders for the cartel. His major focus was to hunt and shoot down any cops snooping around the dealing of the cartel. Remember, his dad was a cop, so he had some insight as to how the whole law system in Colombia worked. But it wasn't just his insights into the law that made La Quica stand out. It was his efficiency, his tenacity, his melting pot of killing skills that made Pablo Escobar like him so much. Like, if you really think about it, Pablo Escobar had so much money, some say he couldn't control all of it. And at the same time, he was constantly looking for new ways to become even more powerful. This simply means that Pablo needed some very trustworthy eyes and ears on the street to help him stay on top of things always, and La Quica was equal to the task. In the 1980s, Pablo had a policy to gift his soldiers $4,000 for any police officer they killed. And since hunting down cops was something La Quica did for fun, he took this policy from Escobar very seriously. He'd kill policemen before breakfast, before lunch, and probably before dinner too. He killed many cops and never actually got charged with murder. He had his way around Medellin and could bribe his way out of anything. And I mean anything. He also had the silly habit of tattooing the letters KK on his victims' bodies after he killed them. But killing policemen wasn't even the worst of things that La Quica did. If those were his only crimes, we wouldn't even be making a video right now. If he was told to kill a man, he would kill the man, his wife, and his children, just to make sure there were no witnesses or traces back to him. One of the most sinister murders La Quica committed came in December 1989 when he blew up an entire school bus of kids that was outside the Department of Administrative Security, DAS, which is kinda like the equivalent of the FBI in the US. He loaded the bus with tons of dynamite, and boom, he detonated it, killing a lot of children in the process. Also, La Quica once shot a rocket launcher into the US Embassy in Bogota, killing many and injuring a whole lot more. But the most diabolical thing La Quica did was orchestrate the Avianca Flight 203 bombing that killed hundreds of civilians in cold blood. On November 27, 1989, La Quica convinced two of his men to board a flight with the bomb in a briefcase. The whole idea was to murder another presidential candidate, Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, that stood in the way of Pablo and his dream to become the president of Colombia. However, Gaviria didn't board the flight, so all the efforts became vain. But since the bomb was already on the plane, La Quica's men convinced a random Colombian, Alberto Prieto, into activating the bomb and killing over 100 people in the process. 2 Americans were among the people that died in the bombing, prompting the Bush administration to begin intelligence support activity operations to find all narcotics and cartel members who were involved in that bombing. La Quica helped Escobar kill 3 out of 5 presidential candidates that were running against Pablo at the 1989 national presidential election. And even though Pablo and La Quica weren't able to kill the former president, Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, La Quica's end came pretty early with the involvement of the United States in looking for him. Now, back to my story at the beginning. The DEA had intel that La Quica would be in the US, so it was the perfect opportunity to apprehend him. When he was finally taken into custody, La Quica lied to the agents, stating that his name is Esteban Restrepo Echevarria, before his identity was confirmed by fingerprint records provided by Colombian officials. But the crazy thing about La Quica is that he did his job so well that the US law enforcement couldn't pin any of the crimes he had committed. However, he was convicted 1 month later of lying to a federal officer and possessing a fake passport and sentenced to the maximum term of 6 years in jail. Now, while he was in jail, federal prosecutors claimed that he was a major player of the Medellin cartel and was responsible for the bombing of Avianca Flight 203 on the orders of Pablo Escobar. But you might be asking yourself, if the plane crash happened in Colombia, why was La Quica detained in the US? Well, La Quica was the first person ever to be convicted under a 1956 federal law towards bombing a civilian aircraft, thereby making La Quica eligible to stand trial in the US for a foreign crime. He was charged with conspiracy to import and distribute cocaine, substantive importation of cocaine, participating and conspiring to participate in a racketeering enterprise, engaging in a continuing criminal enterprise, various offenses relating to the bombing, and other crimes. His first trial in 1994 lasted 2 months, but was declared a mistrial after the jury was unable to reach a verdict. In his second trial in the same year, he was convicted on all 13 counts and sentenced to 10 life sentences plus 45 years, all to be served consecutively. He became one of the first inmates housed at the deadliest prison in the world, the ADX Florence in Colorado. But here's what we find most interesting about La Quica's sentence. The presiding judge of the case, Judge Sterling Johnson Jr., commented as he passed his sentence to La Quica, "Not only are you an evil man, but the things you did, you enjoyed doing." So, do you think La Quica was a truly bad man? Can his actions be justified, given it was a life he grew up in? And most importantly, make sure to check out either video shown on your screen right now. Click on one, and I'll see you there.